There's a lot of business owners out there that'll say, you know what, running a company would be great if it weren't for the freaking employees. They're just so painful. Okay, but how do we actually turn the tide so that you recognize that your employees, you have a privilege. You're privileged to be able to hire employees, and you're privileged to help be on the journey with them and to provide for them so that they're providing for their families and then turning those dollars back into the community.
Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder, CEO of Paper Raven Books. And today I have with us two special guests. These are the co-authors of a book called Fulfilled: The Passion and Provision Strategy for Building a Business with Profit, Purpose, and Legacy. Kathryn and Michael Redman, thank you both for being here today.
Thank you, Morgan. We're super happy to be here.
Always good to be with you.
Yes, definitely. We have had our fair share of conversations about business. So I'm really happy to be able to share this one with everyone. And one of the cool things about this book is that it's gotten a lot of traction. I mean, we're running a promotion now, and so we'll tell you guys more about that. But I mean, when you look at the praise for this book from other business leaders that we both look up to, it's pretty tremendous. And so to think about writing a book about business, I think especially in this day and age, is a special kind of endeavor. But I'm curious from y'all's perspective, when you were writing Fulfilled, who do you feel like you were talking to, and what did you feel like it was your kind of main message that you wanted to make sure was in the book?
That's a great question. So I'll start really quick. I think we were really writing to people who run and own businesses, especially if they have employees, although it works for solopreneurs. But our main message in the book is that it is possible for you to have a fulfilled life and a fulfilling business like that, which is why we call it Fulfilled, right? It's actually possible. You don't have to choose between making money and having life. So we really are honing in on, which is, we use this passion and provision term, but what does it look like to run a business in a way that your business is successful, your life is successful? So that was the message. And how do we actually encapsulate all in one place, certainly at a high level, but an accessible level? What does it look like to run a whole business and to be holistic in how you think about it, how you approach it, how you build it and run it, so that it can ultimately do what you want it to do?
When we're talking to these folks that are our target for the book, and a lot of our target for our clients for the last 20 years, it's owner-run companies, whether it's the founder, first generation, second generation, and sometimes even third generation, but they're these privately held companies that have been around a while, right? And they're dealing with growth issues and leadership issues and challenges like us, because we started our company 20 years ago together. And this is our second company. We have another company in a totally different industry that's also a seven-figure company. And when you look at the challenges of 90% of businesses fail, and out of those, and those numbers are unfortunately going up. And then the stats out of that are the ones that survive. Only 4% of them make it to seven figures or greater. Yeah. As we've worked and been a service-based company, working with these types of clients and coaching these types of people, we realized that it was a holistic approach. You had to develop as a leader, and we developed the whole leader and thinking about the business holistically. And when you did, and you stopped thinking about it in silos, or going after just a solution, like if I could just figure out how to be this master marketer, I'll solve all my problems of distribution and customers and everything else. And my employees will work great because I'll just have all these customers coming in, everybody will be happy. And then we all need a drink at the end of the day because we were wrong.
Our employees don't like us, customers hate us. Yeah, it's a great time.
And passion and provision was this idea that, so often in life, the word both and is something that happens in a lot of our vocabulary. Even if you look at our neurology, we're even designed to kind of choose one or the other, A or B. And that whole idea of win-win is counterintuitive to that thought process. And the idea that you could have a company that could be financially viable and thriving with positive cash flow, and the work itself could be fulfilling. And then as we even put the book together and wrote it, and it helped us clarify more, we realized there's a third part. So you've got positive cash flow, you've got this idea that's fulfilling, and then you've got this idea that really is even more centered to it, that the work you're doing, the company you're running, whether it's one company or you're running 100, is an integral part to your unique contribution and purpose in this world. And so what you see is you see this idea of passion and provision being a vehicle towards profit, towards purpose, and towards leaving a legacy for the people tomorrow in your company and the community around you, or a legacy 100 years from now. And that's really who we're speaking to. If that resonates with somebody that is in that new company to 250 employees, owner run, first, second, or third generation, that's perfect. But if you really care about those three things, profit, fulfillment, and a way to make that 50 or 60 hours a week that you're working part of your unique contribution, not something that is going to allow you to make a significant contribution outside of that with the little amount of time you have, why not wrap it all together? And if that's it, those are the people we're speaking to, going, here's how we can encourage you. Here's how we can support you. And here's some of the things that we learned along the way. We hope they're helpful.
Yeah. So good. Okay. There are several things I want to dive into. First, I want to say, anyone who's listening to us and if you're here with us, if you feel like we're talking to you, I would definitely encourage you, go check out the promotion that we're running on the book. It's at paperravenbooks.com/fulfilled, FULFILLED. It's linked up next to this video. And you'll see the special promotion there. And the cool thing is that inside of this book, we have a toolkit that you can implement the content that you're learning, and you'll see those tools inside the book. So go ahead and head over to that link, and you'll see that special promo and all the details over there. And also, I just want to mention, you guys sort of alluded to it. You are the husband and wife team behind Half a Bubble Out, which is that leadership development company. And you guys talk about developing the whole leader for the whole business. And then you also have this other, 7-figure company, and you've really built both of these from the ground up, and you're still married.
Still like each other. It's crazy.
You still like each other.
29 years in April.
And so we talk a lot about business, and y'all have a great podcast. And so I really look up to you two as an inspiration for, like, why would I keep building this business that sometimes it feels like my business is going to eat me alive?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Kathryn and Michael have made it work, so there must be something. And so I will say that when I was listening to the audio version of y'all's book, there was something that stayed in my memory that was about, and I didn't prep y'all with this question, of course, because that would be nice. But there was a statistic that was quoted. Essentially, the heart of it was most people don't like their jobs. And one of the ways in which we as business owners can really make significant change in the world is by providing good work for people to do that they enjoy and that is fulfilling for us too. And I wonder if sometimes we accidentally lose sight of that. And I'm curious from y'all's perspective, like, what about your business is fulfilling for you and for the teams that you're building?
That's so good.
Oh,
That's so good. So the statistic you're referring to is a Gallup poll that basically says that 3 out of 4, 74%, and I think it goes up and down, but 74% of American workers are what they call disengaged at work. Essentially means sleepwalking through the job. They're just punching the clock, not really contributing, not excited to be there, don't love work, that kind of thing.
And there are variations of disengaged to I absolutely hate it. So you might be having some people listening right now going, well, I don't hate my job. You don't have to hate it. If you don't really like it and you're not engaged and bringing your best self to work every day and find it hard to do that, you're in that 74%.
Yeah. And it happens for business owners too. But that statistic for us is like, oh my gosh, that's so sad because we spend so much of our lives at work. So how do we, for Michael and I, there's a lot of business owners out there that'll say, you know what, running a company would be great if it weren't for the freaking employees. They're just so painful. Okay, but how do we actually turn the tide so that you recognize that your employees, you have a privilege. You're privileged to be able to hire employees, and you're privileged to help be on the journey with them and to provide for them so that they're providing for their families and then turning those dollars back into the community and all of those things. So how do we care about people and care about our employees so that we're helping them not be the people who don't love work?
Talk briefly about your transformation with paychecks.
Yeah. So we had a season, you always end up writing out of your pain, right? So part of what birthed this book is a number of years ago during the Great Recession, we had grown really rapidly. And then
400%
in 18
months.
months. It was super
Yeah.
painful. Great for cash flow, but not so great for life. And we hit a place where we were just really miserable. We didn't want to cross the threshold of our own business. Like you pull up Monday morning, the parking lot, you're looking at the sign and you're like, I don't want to go in there. I don't like it in there. That's a dark, dark hole. And I built that dark hole and I don't like it. So we hit that place. And during that season, when you're struggling, it's hard not to resent your employees. It's hard not to be like, you're just a pain. I don't actually like, why? Ugh, I don't like you. So as we rebuilt and as we retooled and as we sort of shifted our mindset and began to look at work a little bit differently and look at how we could rebuild the company as opposed to giving up, which was definitely a consideration, I hit the place where I needed to do something to really cement my mindset about the privilege it is to have employees and to be able to be a part of their lives and all that they're doing to further their lives.
And one of the things I liked about this story is that you were choosing to be very intentional.
Yeah. So I literally got to the place where when payday came, I would grab the paychecks and I would walk around to each individual and I would hand them the paychecks and I would say, thank you for the privilege of paying you. Thank you for the privilege of paying you. And it got to be kind of this joke around the office. I would hand them the paycheck and they'd say, thank you for the privilege of working for you before I could get mine out. And it was so funny, but it really shifted that intentionality, that choice, because I didn't always feel that way when I was saying those words, right? There was times when I was like, thank you for the privilege of paying you. I didn't always feel it, but the more that I did it, the more I realized, yeah, this is a privilege. And we don't want to create cultures where people are surviving work. We want to create cultures where people are thriving, where they understand that they have a contribution. They get how they're connected to the larger mission. They buy into that. And then that becomes fulfilling for you as an owner because they're on the journey with you. They're excited about where you're taking them and they're willing to work to make that happen because they're bought in and they understand how their contribution leads to the greater vision of what you're trying to achieve. So that was one of my major epiphanies, was just transitioning how I paid people and audibly out loud saying it so that I could change my mindset. Really helpful.
And it's things like that we talk about in the book.
Anything to add, Michael?
That was really good. I'm impressed. My wife always impresses me. No, I'm good. Thank you very much. It's been great talking to you.
What do you feel like leaders struggle with the most when they come to you, right? So speaking as a business leader, like we will just sit in our own little vicious cycle of struggle until we reach a breaking point. And then we're like, okay, I need leadership help. And I find Kathryn and Michael and they come to you. What do you feel like people are struggling with?
Do you want to know what they say or what we think they need?
Oh, what they say and then what you think they need. Or
at least their biggest challenge.
Your diagnosis. Yeah, what they say and then your diagnosis. The symptom and then the diagnosis.
A lot of times they come because they're wrestling with not having enough customers, not having the right culture, feeling like there's friction and tension with the right employees, not being able to do that. So there's employee challenges are common. Marketing problems are really common. And for a long time, for the first 18 years of our company, we were a marketing advertising firm that also did leadership development as opposed to a business development. But we had such a holistic perspective in the marketing that they would come in going, I need a marketing asset. I need more customers. I think if we had the right marketing, we could go break through the next level and all that. And they're stuck at $1 million at 900,000 and can't make it through. And as we ask questions and listen, what happens is they realize that they're not thinking about their company holistically, but they're running into common human problems or customer problems. And they think that everything else is separate. And we'd go, okay, well, let's talk about the whole system. Well, that doesn't matter. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for this. And so they came in with a real siloed mindset, whether they knew it or not. And they came in with a lot of times that either people or people in the form of employees or customers. And they would say things like, well, if we could just do this, it would be amazing. And they would describe something. And then you'd ask some simple question like, okay, well, let's assume for a moment I could bring you as many customers, like I could just turn the faucet on and bring you tons of customers. How many?
Oh no, I can
How
only
many?
handle.
I remember one conversation we had that it was 30, 40 minutes of, and we're just talking about like they could handle like 100 a month. And literally, I remember him saying, I can handle 2. That's all we have the bandwidth for. I'm like, why are you here? It doesn't break even to even hire somebody to help you get 2 customers. But he had all these ideas, but all this idea of capacity, structure, management of daily operations, all of that kind of stuff, it wasn't working. So I'm going to answer, kind of sum that up, is they're asking for help in this area where I've, as a business owner, have tried to fix all these problems. And this is the one that keeps pestering me the most. This is the thorn in the saddle that I can't quite find, and I need help. And so I'm finally willing to pay somebody and go out and talk to somebody else because, or I don't have time for it. And I'm finally willing to admit it. Here's what's going on behind the scenes. Almost invariably, over 20 years of having conversations, there's this subconscious belief that because they started the company, because they own the company, that they're the ones that have all the answers, and not necessarily all. They're supposed to.
They're supposed to have all the answers.
And if they have any measure of success at all, and that could be the number in their gross revenue, which could be $1 million, 5 million, 20 million, or it could be, look how much I made in the last 3 years and look at how successful I've gone because my line tilts up from the left to the right. And whether they know it or not, they're stuck with, I know I'm supposed to solve it all. I feel like I'm supposed to solve it all, and I'm good enough to solve it all. So therefore, asking for help, I don't need it. So they'll complain a lot about different challenges, but when you start to offer suggestions, they're like, well, no, I've got that figured out. I've got that figured out. I've got that figured out. But when you actually start asking questions and digging a little deeper and just being inquisitive and not accusatory, what you find out is, oh, they've got a lot of chronic, like a physical to doctor. This hurts. Well, you've got this, and this going on. Oh no, I'm fine. I just need something for this. And no, there's more. The ones that are really successful that we are able to help and find that they thrive and they don't hit that wall and fall back down or get stuck there is the ones that go, I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Yes, I was successful doing this, but there's so much I don't know. And I might be able to solve that problem with spending less money and more time, because I have more of that. Like we all have a lot of time, right? But then they start going, I'd really be happy if my stress was less and I worked with somebody else and I could share the burden. Too many young entrepreneurs that have been successful and too many old entrepreneurs that have been around a long time that have just created their own little empire don't know how to share the burden. They somehow have their ego wrapped into, and it sounds like it's all conscious. It's not. And I will tell you, we have done the same. And as we work with folks that are willing to have honest conversations and go, oh, yeah, there's multiple ways to solve that. Oh, that might be helpful. Oh, I have to grow as a leader.
Guess what?
Because underneath it all, we can grow. We can teach you all these different things. We can all learn all these different skills to running a business, but it's significantly tied to us growing as a leader in a holistic fashion. And that's really what's underneath it all. And they come to us because they have a single problem they've identified. They stay with us if they realize that really what they have is they have a holistic systems problem in their business and them as a leader, and they need to grow and they don't know how.
Yeah, we'll talk about, even for us back in those days where we had just done that super big spike and we were miserable. We're talking essentially our business grew beyond the capacity of our leadership. So we had to retool, really be more intentional about how we were growing in our leadership, which was partly about getting some outside input, right? Mentors, coaches, that kind of stuff. So growing in our own leadership so that we could manage the business and not have it collapse back down to the size of what we could manage.
And land on top of you. It hurts.
Yeah. So
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I'm curious how you two feel like you have grown as leaders. I think it's especially interesting because y'all have grown what started as a marketing company with leadership on the side to really being leadership, as you say, developing the whole leader for the whole business. And you actually have an e-commerce business as the other business, which is like, I imagine a whole different kind of skill set. Like, how would you describe yourself as a leader now? And how's that different than you maybe were when you started?
What would you say?
So I think that for me, one of the ways I've really grown, and I was actually just thinking about this morning, is the ability to listen to other really, really smart people who have lots of wisdom and input and not feel like somehow that diminishes me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So as leaders, that sense of I should know stuff. I've been doing business for 20 years and blah, 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 blah. And we get this like sense of either an imposter syndrome, because if I listen to that guy's super smart. So why does the world need me? I'll just send them over there. Right. And so for me, it's the place of realizing that outside input really helps me grow, really stimulates my thinking, really helps me codify the things that matter to me, and ultimately helps me figure out how what I'm bringing has maybe a different angle or a different part of wisdom in it. So really not being threatened by other leaders, even if they're in the same industry. Like, there are enough fish in the sea. And if I can help you grow and you can help me grow, then I want to be open to that, as opposed to feeling like I have to protect my kingdom. Right. So that's one way that I feel like I've grown over the course of leading this company, and then the e-commerce company, which, like you said, is a completely different animal, so to speak. It's in the pet food industry, lots of little animals.
Yeah. There's a bunch of ways. So I'll mention two. One's practical and one's more of my own personal identity. I think I have a better idea of what my ego is and where it gets in my way and where it's helpful. We built a company, and Kathryn and I both like being on stage. We both like being in front of people. We're very comfortable there. It's kind of one of our sweet spots. And if there's a role we're going to take, we could do that. We're also have been told we're good at what we do. Every time we kill it with a client is super happy. They tell you you're awesome. One of the hard things to do was to learn to go, if I'm going to actually grow a business and have more impact and reach into and actually grow into my potential as a leader that I haven't reached yet, I actually have to not do the day-to-day work nearly as much. And I have to be willing to help other people get there and do that and get the accolades. And so when it's one thing to think, hey, it'd be neat if one of our clients says our staff is amazing. I want them to do that. So staff be amazing. But it's another thing when the customer says, I didn't need you at all. Your staff was amazing. They took care of me and you could not have been there. And they meant that as a compliment. And you're like, well, wait a minute, Michael, you didn't do anything. They did it. Okay. So what am I good at? And you can get lost in that, and leaders do. And so trying to grow in that place of learning that. And the other part is really at a functional level that pairs with that is, how do I grow to that place and learn how to develop the leadership skills so that the competence and character of our company and the brand we built stays intact? Because it's different when you're in the room with the client controlling that brand and that reputation at your, whatever your standard is, and not being in the room and your staff now holds that brand and reputation in their hands. And how do you hold the quality level and the accountability with your staff? And that's a whole nother level of leadership that I had to start learning, that I'm not done with that journey yet.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the book that either of you thinks, I'm really glad that we put that in the book, because maybe you find that you have a conversation about it and you are able to say, hey, go read this chapter because actually you're going to love that chapter? Or is there anything that you're like, yeah, I remember that ending up in the book, and I remember being really glad because that was going to be important for leaders to hear or understand?
Let me jump in first.
Do.
I really like the introduction in the first chapter. I tell people regularly, if this kind of fits who you are, if we just talk about, you're kind of in our demographic, read the introduction and first chapter. If it doesn't resonate with you, throw it out. So seriously, don't be offended. I won't be offended if you don't read any more of it, because if the philosophy of our story and the heart of who we are doesn't resonate with you, then the rest of this stuff will be helpful, but you won't get out of it. Really, I don't think we're going to be the best fit for you, because there's a lot of really practical, tangible stuff that we try and explain and make some difficult things easier to understand and then practical. But it has to come from that grid of wanting to live into your best self and to have that really successful, thriving company that's also fulfilling. And it's okay, but there are people out there who they just want to build a business, make it successful, make a bunch of money, sell it or create cash flow. And so that they can spend it somewhere else in life that is going to bring them more pleasure or more joy or whatever. I question sometimes if that is an allure to something that doesn't happen, because you end up working 70 hours a week and sleeping. And then where's the rest of the quality of life? But some people can do it. If you read the first chapter in the introduction and it jives with you, and you like go, yes, these are my people, then the rest of the book, I think, is going to be really useful.
So I think when I think of the things that I'm really glad landed in there, there's just a few really good stories that are super relatable, that are sometimes pretty freaking funny. Like I think it's in the leadership chapter, but we actually created this term with some friends and we called it Syndrome 27.
Oh yeah.
And Syndrome 27 was this concept of being like 27 years old. And it was a story that Michael was sharing about, like, he's 27 and he's coming across the parking lot, heading to our house. And he's like, I got this. I'm doing really well. Where do I need to grow? Oh, I don't think I need to grow. And then having that realization, oh no, that might mean I need to grow. Right. So, just really kind of sharing just personally, because we're so much further along than some of our younger entrepreneur friends. But what did it look like?
So much when she means older, not like
yes,
more successful,
just older.
Older.
But what does it look like to just be on that growth path, to just be super intentional about growing, and to realize when you hit that place where, yeah, it's really great to feel like, I got this, like, this is good. You can have that moment, but you can't stay there, because the next challenge is going to come. It's going to knock you on your behind, and you have to keep growing and being intentional. So I love that story.
I think it's a great story about arrogance. And as we've told it more and more, and we were away on a couples weekend with another couple of ours that are friends of ours. And we had this, and it was a great moment. This poem story that we might tell in a little bit came out of it, and all these great little moments. And we're sitting there talking about this thing that happened. And arrogance is like, you think you're better than you are. But I'm not sure, the older I get, the more we talk about this story, I'm not sure arrogance is that. Arrogance seems to be more, for me, and it happens with successful leaders, is you're fully aware of all the things you've done well, but you are unaware of all the places you need to grow. And so you're not fully aware. And arrogance is half truth and half lie.
Yeah.
And you can get sucked into that. Humility is confidence properly placed, is the definition we use for humility. And that means you can say, if I'm good at 5 things and I'm the best in the world, then it's okay to say you're the best in the world at it. To say you're not, if you are the best, is false humility. But because of that, extrapolate that you're the best in the world at everything, and your stuff doesn't stink.
Hubris
is a foolishness. And then Syndrome 27 is, now those of us that are in the know, and all your listeners are now in the know, is when you spot it, you smile and you look at your friend that knows it and you go, Syndrome 27. It's code for they don't quite understand yet, but they will.
But they will.
Because nobody gets to avoid the unveiling of the other part of it.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So guys, if you're with us, you're listening, you're watching, and you're feeling like you're this type of leader, maybe some of us feel like we're experiencing some syndrome 27, or we have reached a plateau and we're not sure how to go from here to there, or we feel like there's one problem, but we're a little bit worried that if we unpack this one problem, it might unveil a whole stack of other problems. I mean, Kathryn, Michael, that's why y'all wrote the book, right? So we would definitely encourage you guys, while it's on promotion right now, go to paperravenbooks.com/fulfilled. You can check out the toolbox that's inside of the book that really helps you to bring these big ideas onto the ground and into your business and really make a lived experience difference in how you are with your business, with your team, with yourself. It's life-changing when you go through this process. So thank you, Kathryn and Michael, for writing the book. And I'm curious, because you two podcast together, you run the business together, you talk about the business, I'm sure, a lot, and you have, 20 years of stories. When it came to writing the book, a lot of people would say, oh, well, you have all these podcast seasons and you've done presentations, just gather up all the audio files and like chuck them over the fence to somebody to write the book. Were you tempted to do that?
Totally. 100%
Yes,
tempted.
100%.
Well, I mean, it's like some people tell you can do that.
Yeah.
Like I can have a book and we'll just do that. That didn't work out well for us.
It would assume that our podcasts are extraordinarily systematic, which would be the first mistake. But that'd be the first problem. We might meander a bit in our topics and choices and things that we think are important on any given day, which is really good for the listener, but not great for the book process, as it turns out. I mean, 20 years of business, we have too much content.
Oh, crikey.
And not only did we have too much content, well, how do I break this down? We have this philosophy on passion and provision and what that looks like and what it means to be holistic. But we also wanted to be really practical. Like the holistic means you really need a business model, right? So we created a business model, and that's what's in the book. Is we have some philosophy, and then we have this business model that's super tangible and super practical.
Yeah.
And we kind of are codifying. There's 6 areas of business. And you know what? You don't have to use our model, but you got to use a model, because otherwise you're not going to be reminded to think about all these things, right? And then we were literally writing a chapter on each of those aspects. Well, you could fill a room with books on leadership, and we wrote a chapter. You could fill another room with books on how to build a vision or create a vision. Well, maybe not as many on that one, but there's a bookshelf, right? Or marketing. I mean, good Lord. So how do you pare it down so you're communicating the essentials and not just dumping everything you know? And so that was part of what working with somebody else to help us craft that content helped us begin to be a little bit more ruthless about eliminating some of the stuff that's super important. But we're doing 101 here, and that's 103. If you think about the academic model, we didn't want to write the 103, 104 book. We were writing the 101 book.
That alluded to that somebody who was experienced could read and go, I don't feel bored, or that they could get something out of. So how do you speak to a 101 person and a 103 person at the same time?
Yeah. I think that is the concern from the writer who is writing a book, not yet an author because it's not published yet. The concern of like, am I delivering what I want to deliver? There's this experience for the reader that I want them to have. And I'm not sure that's what is being presented on the page. And I think that you're right, that at some point we do have to, we even talked about this. You don't have to have all the answers as the leader. You don't have to have all the answers as the writer. You have to have enough desire to bring to the page what you want to create, that you're willing to be humble and to say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Beta reader, coach, friend, mentor, will you read this and will you give me your honest feedback? And I think that if we have that kind of humility and we're willing to take that feedback and to go, return to the draft and say, okay, let me go through this again and see if we can get it closer and closer and closer to that experience I want the reader to have. That's ultimately what it takes. And then eventually you have to, push the book on out. It has to get published. You can't do that, forever. There's the decreasing returns over time, but at some point to have someone who can say, okay, help you say, yes, now's the time to release it, because we need more than 5 people to read it.
Yep.
It's time for lots
sure.
of people to read it.
Yeah.
That's the key.
So there's this moment that happened. As a matter of fact, it turned out to be on the weekend of when Syndrome 27 was kind of coined. And the story led to a moment and to a poem that was unexpected, but incredibly poignant, and probably wraps up this whole conversation quite well. So tell the story.
So let me tell it really fast. So we were in Truckee, California, and we were at a farmer's market, and it was late afternoon, and we were waiting for our friends to get into Truckee. So we were wandering. We were going to have dinner on our own and then meet up with them later.
And Truckee's in the Sierra Nevada mountains, just north of Tahoe.
Yeah, it's just beautiful
mountainous country.
It's a great outdoor farmer's market. So we had made a reservation for a restaurant. We had like an hour to kill. We were just wandering. And we kept walking past this guy who had this setup where he literally had a sign that said, "Your poem, your price." And he was literally just saying, hey, it was advertising weddings and events, like, I'll write you a personal poem. And so we walked by him several times, and it was such a janky setup. Like he had this like super old typewriter, these tiny little things and like
little cards that he was
typing on, and he couldn't manually or do the return on his old typewriter. He had to hang a counterweight. Like it was funny. It was janky.
And he was like this weird hipster guy with this weird
hat,
but he was very happy and very smiley and everything.
Yeah.
So
we're walking by. We've walked by him like a couple times, and he's doing poems for couples and whatever, and we're just laughing. And then eventually I just looked at Michael and I go, I wonder what he would do with perseverance, right? So Michael goes, well, I don't know, but I'm willing to risk $10 to find out. That was like the minimum you could pay. It was $10, right? So we walk back over there and we're like, okay, so we have a word. He goes, okay, let me have it. We go, perseverance. Now, understand that most of the time he is writing the poem while the people are standing there. They give him a word. He's like, and he starts writing. He looked at us and he goes, I'm going to need a minute. Okay. So we wandered off. We came back about, 15 minutes later. Are you ready? He goes, not ready yet. Going to need a few more minutes. And meanwhile, he was writing love poems. And I think he was just like, noodling this in the back of his head. So finally we come back. It's probably been about a half an hour. We're like, are you ready? He goes, I'm ready.
Now, mind you, he knows nothing about us.
Nothing.
We are a middle-aged couple in the middle of a bunch of middle-aged people in the mountains.
He doesn't know we own a business. He knows we're married, but he doesn't know anything else. He has a word. Okay. And
this is the poem that comes back for us.
This is the poem. It's called Perseverance. And it says this: like buffalo standing strong against the coming storm, not easily swayed once the direction has been decided upon. To grow any dream from seed takes incredible devotion and ruthless perseverance to manifest. Let us be like buffalo and stay true to our path of growth and becoming.
Wow.
Mic drop, right?
Can I buy that from you and put it in my office?
We blew it up. We have it framed.
We'll have a conversation next week.
We will.
We'll talk about that. And I mean, powerful, right?
Perseverance. It is a powerful little poem.
The text kind of goes funky and stuff, but we took it and blew it up.
Essence to grow something.
Yes. Stay true to our path of growth and becoming.
And it's this whole idea where we didn't even realize it, how it spoke to not only success and seeing something through, but the idea that we talk about in this idea of it's going to be not just fulfilling, not just profitable, but part of our unique core purpose and contribution in this world. And we're going to continue to live into our potential. And so one of the things we have been joking about is at the half a bubble out, and we use HABO as our acronym. So around the office and our community of friends and customers, and everything else, is creating what we're calling the Buffalo Brigade.
Yep. It's a $10 buy-in. And
you can be, the first 100 is our charter members. So you get, and there's a badge and a logo and a certificate that you're going to get and everything else, to saying, are you in with us to say, yeah, I want to be like that. I want to continue my life like that.
Stay true to our path of growth and becoming.
We're just super excited about the way this is all worked through. It speaks to the book. It speaks to our company. It speaks to our vision and mission as a company of helping other people achieve that, their growth, their path of growth and becoming.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathryn. Thank you, Michael, for being here and for writing the book. And I know that's not a small task to write a book, especially a book that you put so much of both of your hearts into. And so thank you for writing the book for this generation of leaders and the next generation of leaders. So folks, if you're here, paperravenbooks.com/fulfilled, get a copy of Fulfilled, the Passion and Provision Strategy for Building a Business with Profit, Purpose, and Legacy by Kathryn and Michael Redman. Whole toolbox in there that will help you implement all of this into your business, and a special promotion running right now. So go ahead, head over to that link. We've got it next to this video, and grab it while you are here and thinking about it. And thank you, Kathryn. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Morgan. It was a fun conversation.
Yes, always. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.